So it feels like the criminal justice system has been put on pause for the last 4 years. Like somebody hit the pause button. But you know what, folks? We are about to hit play. And we're about to move toward justice. Because justice matters. Hey all, Glenn Kirshner here. So we are riding high. We've exhaled, right? We feel the weight lifted off our shoulders. We deserve to celebrate a little. But make no mistake about it, we remain focused on justice. And as President Biden said, the dream of justice will be deferred no longer. So let's get to it. Let's talk about two short justice topics today. Let's talk about the fact that the FBI Director, Chris Wray, will remain the FBI Director. And then let's talk about pardons, and specifically the Steve Bannon pardon. But let's start with FBI Director Chris Wray. You probably saw the reporting today, this from Politico. Biden to keep Wray on as FBI Director. How do we feel about that? How do you feel about that? I would love to hear from you. Either post something to me on Twitter or over on Facebook, or go to patreon.com, and I would love to hear what people think about FBI Director Chris Wray remaining in place rather than President Biden appointing a new director of the FBI. I can tell you how it struck me. I think there are pros and cons. What are some of the pros? Well, Christopher Wray knows where the Trump and Bill Barr bodies are buried because he's lived it. He has seen behind the curtain what Bill Barr did at and to the Department of Justice. He saw what Donald Trump and his family members and his cabinet members have been doing over the past few years. So that's a good thing, having that inside perspective. Here's one of the cons. What has he been doing about it? Why has Donald Trump and his family members and his cabinet members, why have they all been allowed to commit crimes with impunity without being made to account? Because we've seen the crimes in broad daylight. Why hasn't Chris Wray acted as director of the FBI? Now, I know it may have been difficult because Bill Barr was over the top of Chris Wray. The FBI is a component within the Department of Justice, so maybe there was only so much Chris Wray could do. Because if he wanted to investigate, he wanted to lock up corrupt government officials, well, Bill Barr could squash it. And maybe Bill Barr did. But we don't know. At least as far as outward appearances go, there doesn't seem to have been any investigation of Donald Trump or his family members or his cabinet members during the past few years. They've gotten away with everything. Let's just take one for example. Just pick a Trump cabinet official, right? Bill Barr, that may be unrealistic. Mnuchin, Ross, DeVos. How about Mike Pompeo? Let's just take Mike Pompeo, former Secretary of State, as an example. Okay, what do we know about some of Mike Pompeo's transgressions? Well, we know he did a shady $8 billion arms deal with Saudi Arabia. We know he did an end run around Congress in the process because Congress objected to it. But, he found some slick way to push it through on his own. And he was investigated for it. By whom? By the Inspector General at the State Department. So what happened when the State Department IG started to investigate Mike Pompeo? Mike Pompeo fired him. Sound familiar? And it gets worse, because Mike Pompeo then lied and said, I didn't fire the inspector general, Donald Trump did. Only a president can fire an inspector general. And then Donald Trump, not being smart enough to stick with the nefarious script Mike Pompeo had written for him, Trump blurted out at a press conference, I didn't fire the IG at the State Department. I didn't even know the guy. Mike Pompeo told me to fire him. Outing Pompeo's lie. Then, not surprisingly, Congress wanted to investigate that. Wanted to investigate Mike Pompeo's shady deal with the Saudis. Wanted to investigate his firing of the inspector general who was investigating Mike Pompeo. And when Congress issued subpoenas for the testimony of State Department employees and officials to get to the bottom of what Mike Pompeo had done, Mike Pompeo ordered those State Department employees and officials not to comply with lawfully issued congressional subpoenas. We have a term for that in the criminal justice system. It's called obstructing congressional inquiries. So when you put that stream of facts together that we've just discussed, how many federal crimes might Mike Pompeo have committed? How many laws did he violate in the process? Well, we don't know, because we don't know if Mike Pompeo has been criminally investigated by the FBI for all of those transgressions. Christopher Wray's FBI. Maybe he has been, because the FBI is not supposed to go blabbing about ongoing investigations. So I'm prepared to take a wait and see attitude. But it looks like Donald Trump and his family members and his cabinet members have gotten away with everything as far as we know. We'll wait and see, but boy, we've been waiting for justice for a long time now, and it better start coming soon. Indictments better start dropping on these criminal politicians and on Donald Trump and his family members if the evidence shows they committed crimes. Okay, let's shift focus to a second topic. Let's take on the Steve Bannon pardon. So I am still making my way through the 140 some odd pardons and commutations that Donald Trump doled out like Halloween candy on the last day of his presidency. I haven't gotten through the whole list yet, but in a future video, I will be discussing with you all the parade of horribles that are represented by Donald Trump's pardons. But I want to take on Steve Bannon's, because a lot of people think Steve Bannon's home free. He got away with it. Not necessarily. So here is how things are playing out for Steve Bannon. He creates what looks like a sham nonprofit, the We Build a Wall Foundation. He courts Donald Trump's base and supporters, begging them for money. He takes all their money and then he pockets a bunch of it. You know, it's not the We Build a Wall Foundation, it's the We Enrich Steve Bannon Foundation. Does it qualify as irony that Steve Bannon, one of Trump's close advisors and friends and associates, criminal associates, is stealing from Trump's base, pretending to build the wall? So now he has been pardoned. What happens when you get pardoned? Well, when you get pardoned, the Supreme Court has said, a pardon carries with it an imputation of guilt. But more importantly, when a person accepts a pardon, the Supreme Court in 1915 said, that's a confession of guilt. Stay with me for a minute. Now, Steve Bannon has been pardoned from being tried in federal court, but not in state court, because we know presidential pardons do not apply to state charges. And guess what? When you're Steve Bannon and you commit a whole bunch of financial crimes, financial fraud, tax fraud, Because when you steal a bunch of money from a nonprofit, hundreds of thousands of dollars, you know what I've never once seen that kind of financial criminal do? I've never seen one report that stolen money on his 1040 as income, on his federal income taxes. Right? That would be ridiculous. You don't steal money and then report to the federal government that you stole money so you can give Uncle Sam his share. So Steve Bannon undoubtedly committed federal tax crimes. When you commit federal tax crimes, you know what else you commit? State tax crimes. So now Steve Bannon is facing, or should be facing, prosecution in New York State Court for state financial crimes, tax fraud, and other possible financial crimes. Now, let's put the last piece of the puzzle in place. Because Steve Bannon accepted the federal pardon from the president, and because that is a confession of guilt according to the Supreme Court, here comes the law school exam question. When, not if, but when he's prosecuted in state court for committing those same crimes, but in violation of state law, not federal law, can the prosecutors introduce as evidence to the jury that he confessed when he received and accepted that pardon? I think there's a strong argument that that's exactly what the prosecutors will get to do. I think it's an open question. I don't know that there's any Supreme Court precedent or appellate court precedent on it, because let's face it, Donald Trump and his criminal associates have violated the law in so many novel ways that we're going to be digging out from under it for years. But we will dig out from under it, case by case, criminal by criminal, family member by family member, cabinet member by cabinet member. We will. So folks, the criminal justice system, to wrap up, seems to have been on pause. It seems to have been on hold over the last few years under the reign of terror of Donald Trump and company. The only time it was working is when it was working for Donald Trump's criminal associates, when Bill Barr and Trump were doling out favors to Mike Flynn and Roger Stone and Paul Manafort and Steve Bannon and a whole bunch of other folks. But the criminal justice system now has been taken off pause. We've pressed play again. And now we need to move toward justice, because as President Biden said, the dream of justice will be deferred no longer, and because justice matters. And as always, folks, thank you for tuning into these daily videos. If you would like to support our all-volunteer effort here, you can go over to patreon.com, sign up to become a patron, and if you do, I'll send you some Team Justice stickers and a personal handwritten note of thanks. You can also find me over on Facebook, Justice Matters with Glenn Kirshner. You can find me on Twitter all day and night trying to answer your legal questions at Glenn Kirshner 2. So folks, as always, please stay safe. Please stay tuned. And I look forward to talking with you all again tomorrow.